All right, in true preacher fashion, I'm going to have to ask you to do a favor. This is our first night of our Wednesday night classes, kind of splitting up, which means we're going to have a little bit smaller crowd in the auditorium because I'm thankful we got some classes going on. I want to remind you, you're not going to hurt my feelings. There is the singing class going on right over here, if that's what you enjoy to do. And the discipleship class is meeting also in that front room. But other than that, if you don't want to do one of those two, you're stuck with me. All right. But it would help greatly on Wednesday nights if we have a little bit smaller crowd, if at all possible, we could kind of come in here a little bit. It would just help with some discussion and, you know. All right. Let me go real quick over some of our prayer requests and some announcements that we've got going on so you don't miss those. We've had a busy week when it comes to prayer requests. And I want to continue to make sure we go even back towards last week. Last Saturday had it wasn't a service, it wasn't a funeral. It was a celebratory meal to remember Miss Ruth Christie. And she had some family there, and Donna and Bill have been caring for her for such a long time, and the amount of love they've poured out. I just want to keep on praying for everybody there, and man, she's just so missed. What an awesome, beautiful soul. And so we're going to keep on praying for that whole family, and I'm including you in that family because you're family. Wendy Grigsby is asking for prayers. Many of you know she's been having cancer treatment, and that continues to go on. She's also having some marriage issues she wants us to be praying about. And so we're going to be in prayer for her. Robert Cutlip, Ann Ellens' dad, was able to go home from the hospital. So that's good news. They got that sodium level up to the level where he was good to go. Saul Ellis's mom has been diagnosed with lung cancer. Many of you saw Mike Johnson here on Sunday, and he was down because his son, Kevin, had a heart attack. And they found out that he had 100% blockage and a 90% blockage. And so they're trying to get everything situated there. But I don't think, does anyone know, did he have the surgery yet, or they're still trying to get him to that?
I got a text from Mike just now, and he said that tomorrow they're having a viability test for him.
So they're still seeing if that heart's strong enough to have the surgery. It's pretty weak right now. Vicki Jones, you've seen her. She's been having some knee issues. She was on a cane last Sunday. And I know she's heartbroken because of that knee issue. She was not able to go to the ladies' retreat coming up this weekend. And so she was pretty sad about that. So we're going to be in prayer for her. For a while, we've been praying for Melva Kinkle's niece. Her name is Chriselle. And we've been praying for her. She's got brain cancer. And now, not only does she have brain cancer she's dealing with, but she has got severe shingles on her face and eye. And so she's in Oklahoma City in a lot of pain right now. And so we're going to continue to pray for her. We've got Dennis and Cynthia Marjoni's childhood friend was diagnosed this morning with end-stage heart failure. And so they're not here tonight. Do you have an update?
Yeah, Cynthia found out today also she's an AFib.
Cynthia's an AFib.
No.
Wait.
She's got a monitor.
Got a monitor, but
Okay.
They're checking.
I don't know who to believe anymore.
Don't feel bad.
Believe you?
Just go with him.
I'm going to believe Eddie. Eddie just seems like a believable guy. You're a little questionable. All right. So no matter what, if it's AFib or they're monitoring, Cynthia is having some issues with her heart as well. And then if you hadn't heard, one of our elders, Eric Naboa, was taken to the hospital emergency the other night with a whole lot of pain, and turned out that he had to have his gallbladder taken out. And so that happened yesterday, the gallbladder surgery. He is back home now, and it's going to be quite a little bit of a recovery. And of course, life changes well. Without the gallbladder, you got to change the way you eat and all that good stuff. And so be in prayer for Eric and Paula and the kids. But we were with him yesterday, and he was quite energetic in that hospital bed. Apparently, the pain came from a stone that was lodged, and when the nurse did the ultrasound, just pushing down, it dislodged it. So he was out of pain. What a great thing to happen. But even with that, they had to go in and go ahead and take out the gallbladder. And so he's going to be in recovery for a little bit. Shouldn't be a huge deal. Excuse me. That's all I've got on our prayer request right now. I know Kathy Van Dingsty has not been feeling well. And anything else that we need to add to our prayer list? Oh, yeah. Janet Kopp has got a procedure on her back coming up Friday. And that is to get the spinal stimulator put in, correct? All right, that'll be down in Orlando on Friday. Awesome. Not awesome that you're having the surgery. I hope that helps with the pain, but we're going to add you to our prayer list. Yep, Miss Alice. All right. Okay.
She had a CAT scan today, and we'll find the results tomorrow.
Okay. So if you didn't hear, Alice Evans has been dealing with a hernia issue, and she's been having a good last couple days. Slept through the night for a couple nights, but there was a CAT scan today, and they'll find out results coming up soon.
Our son, Jeremy, yesterday had to go to the emergency room and in the hospital. He had colitis, C. diff, and he was dehydrated and he's been sick for a week or so they put him in there. She talked to him today, possibly going home tomorrow, but not likely.
Okay. And that's your son, Jeremy? Okay. All right. Mama J? Yeah. Yeah. Did he have the second surgery? Yes. Okay. Yeah, Frank Menifee had a surgery last week that did not go very well, and ended up with a whole lot of fluid built up in his abdomen, and is in a whole lot of pain, and so he is back home now. And from what I heard, they did not drain that. They're just hoping it goes away. Yeah. So, yeah, he's in a lot of pain, and so if you need to get any payback on Frank Menifee, don't do it right now. Did I see Pete? Did you have a hand raised? Okay. All right. So a lot to pray for. Let's do that. And then we're going to hop into our new study for our Wednesday nights. I do want to let you know that there is a new Bible study that is happening tomorrow. So Tony Becker is actually going to be leading this. He's been going through this class, and he's done this class before, but it's called Biblical Citizenship. And if you have any questions about what that is, you can talk to Tony. There's a link on the one call that went out where you can get more information about what that class is. But that's going to be on Thursday nights here from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. I think I did it. Here we go. Let's do some praying, and then we'll do some Bible studying. Our Father in heaven, we love you so much. We're thankful to be your children. You're just an awesome, awesome, awesome God. God, we know that every good and perfect thing is from you. We also know, God, that everything that's not good and perfect, while you're in control, there are things that are here because of sin. And we know that sickness entered the world and death entered into the world. And, all these catastrophes and things that are going wrong have entered into the world, not because you made them, but because of sin. And we desperately, God, want to cling on to you and to throw off all those things that are not of you and just live a life that is 100% us and you forever. So God, I just ask that you help us to be diligent about our faith, about our study of your word, about our pursuit of a relationship with you. God, I ask that all these people that we've talked about and we've been praying for and will continue to pray for, that you be with them in every unique way that they need. And I know, God, on this list there are people who need healing. There are people who are facing surgery. There are people who are dealing with long-term diagnosis of cancer, and then there's other things on top of that. There's family issues and hurts, and I mean, there's just so much. And I know, God, that you have the power over everything. That in a single word or even a single thought, all these things could be made well. And so, God, what we ask you to do in every situation is to just display your power. And we'll always be surrendered to your will, God. We'll never, ever doubt your power. And we have faith that you can do all things. I want to continue, God, to pray that you bless the believers here at this congregation. God, help us to draw nearer to you. God, help us to be focused on the mission that you left behind. And as we pray often, and probably not enough, we pray that every ear in the city of Eustis hear your gospel. And ultimately, God, that every single soul bows to your name. We pray, God, for an increase of your Spirit. We pray for a unity that is only from you. And may we be of one mind, one judgment, because we're one body. We love you so, so much. And I pray, God, that that is not just what comes out of our mouths, but it's how we live our lives. May you have all glory and all honor. In the name of Jesus, amen. All right. It's been a while since I've taught on a Wednesday night, so I got to get back in the groove of things, all right? So be gracious with me tonight. I've been traveling, and you've had awesome guest speakers here. Some of you have been, I do want to hear this, because we want to make sure that our summer series, when we do summer series, is bringing in speakers that are that you want to hear, right? So if you have anybody that we haven't brought in, and you would like for them to, us consider bringing them in, let me know. I'll always love hearing more names. If there's people here in our own congregation that you think, man, that person would really do a great job, then let me know. We can. I'm okay with that. So I hope that it was a fruitful time of walking through some of the powerful prayers of the Scriptures. And when I look back on all those lessons, what I always settle in on is this. The same God who answered all those prayers is the same God who is listening to our prayers today. And He doesn't change. He exercised His power then. He can exercise His power even now. All right, the book of Daniel. Sorry, Busch Gardens is still getting me. The book of Daniel. All right. I want to talk about the book of Daniel for a reason. You'll see on the screen that we're talking about the book of Daniel in the light of loving God in a secular culture. Let me ask you this. Easy or hard to be a Christian nowadays? Hard. It's hard sometimes, right? What? You know what I forgot to say? I don't know if Tony's back there right now. We're going to need microphones, aren't we? Tony's got microphones, all right? So on Wednesday night, when we're interacting in class, if you have something real quick, like just a statement, just say it and I can repeat it. If you want to make a comment in class that is a benefit to the people listening at home, just raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you so that not only everybody in the auditorium can hear you, but those who are live streaming can hear you as well. All right. So we say it's hard to be a Christian nowadays, right? What makes it difficult to be a follower of Jesus today? So the mere fact that a lot of people, maybe even most people, are not following Jesus, right? So there's that fact that we are outnumbered if we are following Jesus the way we should. All right. Why else might it be difficult, Kayla?
Losing friends as a young person.
Yeah. Losing friends as a young person. And I'm sure there's even people who are not as young who have faced some of that as well, right? The fact that if we proclaim our faith, live our faith, there's a good chance that people that we love or people that we know and we consider friends may not want to be around that. They might walk away. Family too, right?
Yeah, because they don't understand your connection with God.
Yeah.
They not hooked up, lined up with God.
Yeah.
Just because you lined up with God, they down you.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to keep loving your brothers and sisters, and they keep throwing stones at you. It's hard.
It is really difficult, especially when it's coming from family, right? And I'm sure there are many people who have faced that in this room. Well, not you've faced it while you're here, but many people in the room have faced that, where you have family members, those that you love, that you try your best to live a life in faith, but it goes against kind of what they believe. And even though you're doing the best that you can, I think the wording was they're throwing stones at you. And man, it's difficult, disheartening when it's people that you love who are casting those stones, isn't it? If we're not careful, our response to some of those things can be less than what it should be, right? So there's pressure coming from family. Sometimes there's pressure coming from friends. There's pressure coming because we might be outnumbered in some way. And let's just be really honest. Our culture as a whole, I would say we are less than Christian. Would you agree with that? I mean, yeah, Miss Donna, do you need a mic? She needs a microphone. Nope. That's true. Yep. Yeah. That's right. She says there's nothing new under the sun. We've been outnumbered from the beginning, which is a wonderful segue into the reason why we're talking about the book of Daniel. All right, the book of Daniel at this moment and this time is going to help us answer questions about how can we interact within a culture that is vastly secular. And when I say secular, I want you to know that I don't want to do this for any kind of shock value, but I plan to speak pretty plainly about what I mean. All right, and disclaimer, I'm going to speak very plainly about what I mean. We live in a culture right now that divides over every single thing. All right, we live in a culture right now that willingly is against the things that God wants us to be for. We have the way that God created people, and we have a culture that is constantly butting heads against what God has done. All right, we have an identity crisis within our young people, old people, you name it. We have all that going on. We have a world that same world that is secular has distorted things that God's created. Not just gender, identity, and stuff like that, but we have distorted things like marriage. We have distorted things like what love really is and what it really means. And here's the thing. I want to tell you a little quick story about what kind of triggered some of my thinking and wanting to do this class. We were at SunQuest, and I'd been thinking through this a little bit. And if you were at SunQuest, you know, we had an artist that was there. And he was painting some pictures on the stage. He's a guy that's from Ocala. His name is EJ. And I was talking to EJ after one of his paintings backstage, and I just wanted to know more of his story. And I don't really know his background all that much, but my buddy Beef knows him well. And I asked him about his, like, what brought you to Ocala? That's where he lives now. And he said, well, I used to live in Orlando. And in Orlando, he had a pretty good life that he was living. He's an amazing artist, and he was a creative mind, and he was doing that in different businesses and cultures and active in a church family that he was down there with. And some of you remember when the Pulse nightclub shooting happened in Orlando. All right, I don't know how many years ago that was. My brother was one of the guys in there. Police SWAT team guys, so it was really close to our family, and watching what was going down there. But EJ said what caused him to leave Orlando was the church's responses to that event. And in my mind, what I thought was, we're about to have a conversation I don't really want to have. Because I thought he was going to say, the churches did not reach out and love the people, that community. Because it was mostly a homosexual community. Pulse nightclub is a homosexual-based nightclub. But that's not what he said. He said, we had people of faith and churches who, because they didn't really know what love was about, embraced and accepted a community without teaching the full Word of God. I thought, man, I don't know why I wasn't expecting him to say that. And he said he used every platform that he had. He was big on social media to try to bring a message of truth. Not one of hate, but one of, this is a terrible thing that happened. And we're going to pray for families and we're going to love people. But that doesn't mean that we align with the homosexual acceptance of everything. And he said the moment that he was outspoken about that, he lost everything. His churches backed out that he was working with, would not allow him to be a part of what they were doing anymore. His social media following was cut into a fraction of what it was, simply because he decided to speak the truth that came from God's Word. I guess we call that being canceled now, right? That's what we technically call it now. And I want to talk about Daniel because this is our culture. All right? So without any more delay, I want to read the first 7 verses of Daniel chapter 1. I plan to get through all of chapter 1 tonight, which you know how that goes on Wednesday nights. All right? Depends on how much you all want to interact. We might have to split into 2 weeks, and that's fine. But Daniel chapter 1 is very, very revealing. And if we listen closely, it is very, very close to our own culture. Like Donna said, there's nothing new under the sun. So let's read the first 7 verses of Daniel chapter 1 together. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. All right, what does it mean to besiege a place? All right? To take over. What is it like for a place to be under siege? What does that look like? So surrounded, right? Surrounded and basically cutting off the life force of anything that can come in. No one's leaving, nothing's coming in. So what are the dangers of being besieged? Death ultimately, right? Usually not a quick one. Right? Because you're looking at starvation, you're looking at, all kinds of stuff. I mean, you think about even smaller things. If someone's incredibly sick, you're not going anywhere, you're right there. And so there's less help. And if it's something that's contagious, guess what's going to happen? It's being stuck right in that small community. So you have this place that's now being besieged by Babylon, a great power in the world. And so, verse 2, it says, "And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his God." All right, so we'll stop there for a moment. What's literally going on here? All right, Babylon has got Judah besieged right now. And as God handed Judah over to Nebuchadnezzar, he goes in and he goes into the house of God and takes things from the house of God. And where does he put them? Into the house of his God. All right, why do you think he does that? Say it again? To rub their face in it, right? It's a power move, is it not? It's a power move. Your God is defeated, and now I'm going to take what belonged to your God and I'm going to put it in the house of my God, showing that my God is what? More powerful than your God. All right? So automatically what I want to see here is this. They had a culture that looked down on the culture of the real true God. Can we relate to that at all today? Right? The idea of I'm going to take what is God's and it's now going to belong to me. Have we ever seen that in our culture? Like, thankfully, we don't have relics like this anymore. There's not, like, you're not going to walk in here. What are they going to take? The chandelier. Put it in your, I don't know what that would look like here, right? But nowadays, our culture is not taking stuff, but they're taking people, a religion. They're taking things that belong to God, and they're claiming it to be their own, just like Nebuchadnezzar did here. I mean, you think about this. There's low-hanging fruit here. I'm usually going to go for that just to make a point. But marriage, who does that belong to? Who created it? God created it. Who thinks they own it now? Culture, man, right? All right? Love, who created that? Who is love? God. Who thinks they own that now? Like, we're calling it all kinds of stuff, but we're using the word love to describe a whole lot of stuff, right? Our young people, who do they belong to? The Lord. And we literally, in our country, have schools and school boards saying, those children belong to us. Like, it's in writing. It is recorded of actual school boards saying, those are our children. Do you think they are? No, they're not. These children belong to the Lord. And my kids belong to me too. All right? Nobody, my kids don't belong to anybody else but me. Unless you want one of them for a weekend. You can have them for a weekend. All right, continue on here. Verse 3, it says, Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate and of the wine that he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. Among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the tribe of Judah. And the chief of the eunuchs, gave them names. Daniel he called Belshazzar. Hananiah he called Shadrach. Mishael he called Meshach. And Azariah he called Abednego. All right, we're going to stop right there. The first point we're going to look at tonight is this. Nebuchadnezzar took the best and the brightest of the Israelites and did his best to change their identity. Right? This is what he was really searching for. When he was taking these Israelite young men, what his real goal was to change who they were. Not just teach them a little bit, but to literally change who they were. He wanted to claim them for his own, to make them turn from Israelite people to Babylonian people. So what does he do? He uses literature, he uses language, and the tearing down of their convictions and their beliefs. Jeff?
Sounds very much like Nazi Germany.
It kind of does, doesn't it? Yeah, nothing's new under the sun. We see it in a big way there. Jeff mentioned, if you didn't hear that, it sounds a lot like Nazi Germany, where you take a group of people, you reteach them everything that they learn, and this is what was going on, right? So you take this group, and here's a question. What demographic did Nebuchadnezzar focus on when he wanted to change the Israelites? Who did he look for? He looked for nobility, right? So those of high standing. Physical beauty. Yeah, so influential people. Smart people. And I think there's one more qualifier in there. What was it? Young. Right? Now, I'm not going to say older people could not be useful to Nebuchadnezzar. That is not the case. But I do want to at least see some parallels right here. I'm going to sound like a crotchety dude. I don't mean to do that. I'm not angry about anything. I'm hopeful about the future. I want you to know that. God is powerful over all things. But if you just take a look into our culture, it's easy to see some trends. All right? Places of education, higher education, are fairly ungodly. Like if you really think about it, some of our Ivy League schools started as ministry training schools. And look where they are now. And they still have little theological elements to them. But if you look at the theology that comes out of those places, they're terrible. I'd take a step further. Even some of our Christian colleges have budged on strong theological beliefs. Right? And we see it all the time with young people who come out of places that have Christian on the name or faith in their name, and they're walking out with, I don't know how to say it, weird stuff. Like incredibly weird thinking that is contrary to what the scriptures actually talk about. Why do you think Nebuchadnezzar wanted to target the young?
Because you're only one generation away from apostasy.
Yeah.
So you seriously take
Yep.
that generation and you brainwash them and you change their thinking and their habits and all that stuff. And from then on, that they will be the leaders.
Yeah. So let's do a little case study. I'm not going to say who's the oldest person in the room. All right? It's not fair to do. And I know I'm not the youngest person in the room. But if we took one of our teenagers and brought him in here, and we tried to convince, I'll use Jeff. Jeff's nowhere near the oldest person in the room, but he's a man who is in his beliefs. He knows what he believes. He can defend his beliefs really, really well. He knows what he believes and why he believes it. And we bring a young person in. You use my son. He has to be a youth group age. He's 8 years old. And if I know this, if I want to convince Noble of anything, all I have to do is say it. Now, it doesn't work if I'm trying to tell him to go do something. But if I want him to believe something, guess who he's going to trust? Me. And I've also taught him to trust his teachers at school, which that's a lot of pressure, teachers. But I have trust in his teachers that they can teach him. All right? So if you bring a Jeff Bay up here and bring a Noble in here, and we try to convince them to believe something theologically incorrect, who is more likely to believe the incorrect teaching? Noble is, right? It's obvious. Jeff's going to be able to defend himself, and if it's something that Noble doesn't yet know about, if he sees a trusted person, especially an authority type of person, that he might see a teacher or somebody like that teach him. His teacher is in the room tonight. You do a great job, by the way. We trust you completely. But he is young and moldable and shapeable. You take this method that Nebuchadnezzar did, and it is nothing new under the sun. Our culture is attacking our young people, all right? And we need to be really aware of this. You know, I have the ability to choose the entertainment for my kids. But if I miss a beat, they're being infiltrated with something. I would really, like, I'm not trying to be, I'm sounding like old, crotchety kind of thing. I just want to be aware. I can't trust Disney. I can't trust Nickelodeon. I can't. Not anymore. Because, and I believe this to be true, I believe that they understand that if they want something to be believed from a population standpoint, they have to tell my kids about it first. And I think it's purposeful, and I think it's blatant. And people understand that if you're wanting to teach and sway a population, you get to the children first. Our music does it, our movies do it, the TV shows do it, you name it. And here's the hard part. If I send my kid to school, train in the best possible way, they sit in a classroom with 20 other kids who may not have been trained the same way. And so every day after school, guess what you have to do if you're doing it right? What did you learn from every single person you talked to today? And I've seen it. And you can't stop it, even in a Christian setting, where your kids come home asking, what does this word mean? Or they start saying a word like, whoa, where'd you get that? Or you found out that they did something, like, who taught you this? It wasn't me, but it came from somewhere. And I just want you to see tonight that the same culture that we have faced in Daniel, I believe it's still purposeful today. Like Jeff brought it up. It happened even in Nazi Germany. It was purposeful. It was planned out, it was skilled, and it had a great effect as far as the purpose that it was done for. Right? Church, we have got to be a church that takes seriously our children and our teenagers. James?
When you take most anyone of any age, particularly a young person, as was the case here, you change their environment from almost nothing to luxury in the king's house. You change their food from garlic and onions to the best food in the king's palace, where they actually have servers and waiters and cupbearers. When you change where they live to the environments of the most elite, most expensive, most luxurious culture, Babylon of that day, the best looking, the smartest, that's a big temptation.
Oh, yeah. Because they were no longer captives, they were chosen.
That's right, they were chosen. So when you handpick these people, like a pimp might do, we'll say, and they feel special and chosen. Well, how does that translate today? You take a young person, you give him $1,000 iPhone, and you give him a brand new Mustang, and you allow him all the money that he needs and wants. You buy him any kind of music that he wants. And if you'd like to go to Egypt for 3 weeks, you pay for it. That's going to be very, very difficult for our young people to say, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening here in Daniel with these bright, smart, good-looking, chosen, feeling really special people.
Yep.
Is happening in our day and age.
Absolutely.
Just with different things.
Yep. When you say it that way, James, what I automatically think of is our social media world, because it's exactly what happens. People start with a following, but sometimes as you budge a little bit more or a little bit more, you're offered a little bit more and a little bit more. And then there's a real world out there where you have people that just post and post and post, and they get to travel, and they get free stuff, and they get notoriety and money and fame. And all that leads to a bondage to doing something so that you can have whatever you might want. It's very real today. I saw a hand up. Kayla and Joy. Go ahead, Mr. Kayla over here. For the people at home to hear, yeah. Go ahead, Miss Joy. You already got a microphone. Then we'll come over to Kayla.
I think when you change a young person's name like he did, you're changing a lot of their identity.
Yeah.
And I think that's one reason so many of the young people who are having trouble with their gender are changing their names so they feel more like a different identity.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get to there in just a second because we're going to talk about these names. Yeah. Kayla, don't listen to whatever James is telling you back there.
And I think that's why God tells parents to train a child up in the way that they should go, because children are very curious, and it could be like the most perfect, well, no one's perfect, but it could be the best behaved child. There's going to come a time where they're still going to exercise their free will and see, well, why did Dad tell me that? I want to find out why.
Yeah. There's going to be a period within youth where there's some testing. But if there's no grounding in truth, then the testing is going to go way too far. Thankfully, what we're going to see in Daniel is that Daniel had some limitations. We're going to talk about that here in just a sec, but Daniel had some limitations.
The only thing I want to say is it's just so sad to see how well the brainwashing is working in our culture.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's calculated, and it does offer a lot. It offers a lot. You know, not in an evil way, but even my son sees it. You know, Dad likes to watch golf, and we do that together sometimes. And on YouTube, there's some golf channels, and in his mind, he has already said, that's their job. They get to play golf and travel the world, and they just make a video of it. That's what I want to do. But to be fair, who would not want that? Now, a lot of those guys on that section are not completely innocent, but they're not, you know, cussing and doing all that kind of crazy stuff that is out there. But man, now that he knows, that's all I got to do is get a part of that world, and then I can do whatever I want. I don't want to be opened up to all the rest of the stuff, right? I'm guessing what we're talking about might be eerily similar to what you're going to be talking about tomorrow in some ways.
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
I had to watch or stop watching football because of my young children. Not so much because of the game, but because of the commercials.
Commercials, yep.
I was like, no, I can't. They can't see me watching this. I don't want them watching it.
Yep.
Football just went.
Yep. And we used to watch games for the commercials. And now you can't do that anymore. And it's sad, right? So we brought up names, right? I know you probably know this, but I want to show you just real quick what Nebuchadnezzar did. He did not just try to change what they were learning. He tried to change who they were. And the greatest way he started to do that was by changing their name. Now, and you brought that up, their name. So you had Daniel, and Daniel means God is my judge. But guess what he turned his name to? Belshazzar, which means not God will protect, but some other god, Bel, will protect. You look at Hananiah, his name means Yah, or God has been gracious. And he turns it into Shadrach, which means inspired of Aku, which is the moon god of the Babylonians. All right, so he's not, names mean something pretty particular in the Old Testament and New Testament as well. You take Mishael, who is what God is, and he turns it into Meshach, belonging to Aku, or this moon god. Man, think about the change there. Where in your mind, you can be so proud of your name because your name means something deeply rich that has to do with your Creator. And all of a sudden, you're brought into this different culture, like James is saying, given everything you could possibly want, and treated like royalty because you're smart and they've recognized your gifts and who you are and all this stuff. But then all of a sudden your name is changed and it violates your God and claims you belonging to a different God. And finally, Azariah means Yah or God has helped. And then Abednego means a servant of Nego, which is another Babylonian god. This isn't just a name change because they said names differently. This is a name change because Nebuchadnezzar was claiming these young men for his gods instead of their own gods. All right? This is identity crisis. When we hop into, I think we can do this, the rest of chapter 1. Do you think we can do this? Someone said no. So I think we could do it, well, if we stay 20 minutes late. I do want to at least start it. I think we can do it. All right, 8 through 21. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. Therefore, he asked the chief of the eunuchs to allow him not to defile himself. And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chiefs of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who assigned your food and your drink. For why should he see that you were in worse condition than the youths who were of your own age? So you would endanger my head with the king. Valid concern, right? If I have everyone else eat the king's food, but I allow you not to, the king is going to see that you're worse off than they are, and then I'm going to be killed. All right, valid concern. But Daniel gets a little bit crafty here. Then Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuchs had assigned over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you, and deal with your servants according to what you see. So he listened to them in this matter, tested them for 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food. So the steward took away their food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables. I'm sure all those other people hated these guys at this point. All right? You took away all of our food, now we got to eat vegetables. All right? Which this is going to go directly against my teachings that you can't be a vegetarian and a Christian. I'm just kidding. This is proof that there is value in vegetables. And that hurts me to say, Doug, but I can say it out loud. Verse 17 says, as for these 4 youths, God gave them, this is so beautiful, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. At the end of the time, when the king had commanded that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar, and the king spoke with them. And among all of them, none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore, they stood before the king. And in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters that were in all of his kingdom. And Daniel was there until the first year of King Cyrus. All right, so there is a lot going on there. There's a lot to cover in a short amount of time. I understand that. We might pick up next week where we leave off here. But I want to make a few points here just to have you consider some stuff. First is this. Daniel endured the literature, language, and the name change. He drew a line when it came to violating God's law. All right. Now, this is going to be pretty important. We're going to ask a few questions at the end of this class. But being taught a different literature did not violate the law of God. Being taught a different language did not violate the law of God. Being given a different name, and by the way, they're still being called their Israelite names here, their Hebrew names, not being called Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and still being called Daniel. Their names were changed, but they knew who they were. When it came to the food, that was going to become a violation of God's law. They were going to be asked to eat the king's food. So the meats that were being told not to eat, they're being told to eat. The unclean foods that were that they've been told not to eat in the law, guess what? They're being told to eat. So this was a violation of God's law, and this is where Daniel drew a line in the sand. But was he able to just go out and say, hey, I'm not doing this? What did he do? He had to get a little bit creative when he was facing some pushback. What I want to be able to do with this class is talk about openly the ways that we can actually interact with our culture that is asking you and asking me and asking our young kids to budge on certain things. Where does it become a place where we speak up for the things we need to speak up for? Where we don't speak up for the things that aren't necessarily as important as some other things. All right? They're going to want to change your name. Did you know that? I don't mean that literally. They're not going to take Jeff Bay and turn him into some other name, right? At least not at this point. But they are changing names. All right? We're identifying as things that we are not. All right? At SunQuest, there was a whole nother conference going on of people who are identifying as animals. All right? They're called furries, apparently. All right? James called them Furbies all week long. I don't think he knows the difference of Furbies. That's a little stuffed animal that is creepy as well. But these were furries. And I don't want to joke about them because at the essence of what it is, it's a group of people who have been told that they can identify as whatever they want when God has told them exactly who they already are. Yeah. And now there's conferences for it. And apparently there's enough people who deal with this thing where they can rent out the Hyatt Regency Hotel and have overflow that they need to go to different hotels. And as our young people are proclaiming the word of the Lord, anytime they walked out, there's someone dressed in a animal costume. Crazy. Crazy. But they're telling you can change your name. And I want you to think about something. Some of us willingly allow our name to be changed. Like right now, especially after last night, I've seen it, where your name has not become who you are, your name has become which political party you identify with. Like that's some of our biggest questions in our culture right now. Are you a Republican or are you a Democrat or somewhere in between? Guess what? That's not who you are. It's not who you are. And I'm not saying don't have beliefs and don't have I'm not saying that. But that is not who you are. You're not a Gator fan or a Seminole fan or a Bama fan or a Tennessee. You're not that. You are a child of God. And you know what? For our young people, it gets a lot easier to get to that next step of changing your name when they see parents that identify as something different than a child of God. And I'm really afraid that there are Christians now who are so passionately Republican or so passionately Democrat that in their own homes, on their own social media, and over every single place, they talk more about that than they do about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And all that has happened there, just like we can take a finger and point it at somebody who says I'm an animal, is you are now saying, that's who I am. That's who I am. And we have got to be so incredibly careful because we do the finger pointing thing that we know who we are and we settle in with who we actually are. You know, when we start taking different names and different labels, it only divides us. And again, I'm not saying don't have feelings and don't have opinions. Like, you're allowed to do that. I've got feelings and opinions as well. I watched 8 minutes of the debate last night because that's what the Fox News app allowed me for free. And in those minutes, I had some strong feelings, right? But you know what I'm allowed to do with those strong feelings? Go to sleep, pray about it, You know what I have the freedom to do? Not say something about it, not become that, not become my opinion, but remain a child of God and be focused on the things that are most important. Because here's the thing, if I am staunchly one-way political and I convert you to think the way I do, I can still let you have a lost soul. And I'm not trying to fight these battles. If you start fighting political stuff, you're going to end up fighting Babylon, and they're good at that battle. They're good at that battle. Yes, ma'am.
Just like the Lord said, focus on Him, not of the world.
Right.
You don't focus on the world, you focus on Jesus.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. The unfortunate thing is we're always going to be in this world, right? What's the saying? We're going to be in the world, but not of the world. I guess in essence, that's what we're talking about, right? Being in this world, but not being of this world. So, in light of this right here, Daniel had to get creative when he was facing pushback. I want to ask two questions that'll take the rest of this time. He knew that God would handle the situation and trusted that His ways were best. And goodness, when he trusted God and allowed and followed the ways of God, he was blessed incredibly, right? He still lived in the palace, did he not? He still lived with the king. He was still taught the literature and the culture and the language, but he was not going to violate the law of God. And when he chose to do that, God blessed him in a great way that didn't take him out of the culture. It elevated him within that culture so that eventually he's going to have a voice to speak out to that culture. And I think that's a big thing with our Christians today as well. We got to stop trying to get out of this culture. Like, I know that's the easy way. I want my kids out of this culture, right? I want them out. I don't want to be influenced by it at all. But at the end of the day, what my job is to disciple my children, so not so that they can seclude from culture, but so that they can do something so great and so faithful that they can have some kind of platform in this culture to ultimately help change this culture. We have got to stop running away, and we've got to start being crafty like Daniel was and figure out how we can start to make some change. All right? Here's how we don't make change: picketing and arguing and fighting. Can we say that? It's not going to make change. We're not going to make change on social media by arguing with every person's comments in every single post. All right? That's not going to happen. You're going to waste all of your energy and all your time in trying to change somebody else's beliefs, and all you're going to do is waste all your time. How can we get into this culture and change it for the Lord? That's what we're looking for. So 2 questions are right here. What areas do Christians need to really be concerned about in our current culture because they violate the will of God? Now, there's a lot. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to throw some out. And you can just pop them out. Just throw them out. You have to raise your hand. Make them like a 1 or 2 word culture. Everything doesn't count. The will of God. That's in the question. But what things in the will of God is our culture violating that we need to have our radar up for and say, you know, that's not something we can just sidestep or accept. That's something that we've got to be about. Homosexuality. All right? Homosexuality is one of them.
Some of our entertainers, too.
Entertainment. Say it again? Dismantling the family. So Christians, we need to be set to stand up for family, right? Man, it's 8 o'clock. All right. Government, all right? In different facets, yes. Education, absolutely. Different areas of government, I would argue, all right? And here's the reason why, and I'll put the next question up and I'll end it right there. We can continue. I will start next week with these 2 questions so that we can continue this conversation. What areas do Christians need to settle down on because they aren't necessarily violations of God's law? I can think of a few here. Some of them would be government in some facets, right? And I'm not trying to start an argument today. Politics would be one of those things, right? I believe, and I'm not saying it's not important, but we argue so much about economic things and money things that's our focus of our politics, where we forget to focus on the will of God. Guess what? Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, right? And some people pick a side and fight a battle based on taxes, you name it. You name it. My kids came home the other day saying, so-and-so is going to raise taxes. So I'm like, how do you know this? It wasn't from their teacher. It wasn't from school. I'll help you out there. It was not at school. It was with some family. Like, what are we doing here? Because we like to fight battles when it's something that hurts us, right? And if it hurts the pocketbook, then I'm going to start fighting a battle. It's going to be a rough question. Like, what does God care about your money? It's His. He cares how you use it, right? He wants you to be a steward of it. But if it all goes away, what does He expect of you? To still be the same consistent follower of Jesus that you were when you had it. And we fight battle after battle after battle. I'm not going to fight that battle. Yeah. He expects Job, who had it all and then all taken away, and he remained faithful, right? I only ask that question because I want us to start to think about this, to rethink what battles are important to face. And once we can identify the battles that are actually important to face, like those things that are against God's will, someone taking your money, it may happen. It can happen as you walk out the door here. Right? It probably happened when you went to dinner tonight. Dinner's getting more expensive, is it not? You name it. But do we care about the things that really matter? The souls of our children, the family, and these kinds of things. We're going to start back. I want you to think about those two questions as we get back coming up this week, but I want you to know this. We are fighting the same battle Daniel is fighting. We love the Lord, but nobody around us does. And it is time that we get into this culture and start influencing for God rather than secluding so that we can have God. We got to go influence. All right, love you guys. I won't keep you any longer. Thank you for being here tonight.
I want to mention something to you.
Yeah.
I have some older grandkids,